Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and in this video I'm going to be going over a quick summary of the lore of the maps of Overwatch, what we do and don't know about the various story of the levels in which we play. Before we get stuck in, think of maps like a playset. Teams in any individual Overwatch matches are like playing with action figures in these playsets. The maps do have story in some cases. It doesn't have to relate to who you're playing as, the composition of your team, or indeed events in the actual Overwatch timeline, although there is some crossover. Firstly, we'll start with the hybrid maps, and we're going to be going with King's Row. King's Row has a history of Omnic tension. King's Row was apparently built off the backs of Omnic labour, and in this city there's never been an easy relationship between Omnics and humans. Indeed, in the current day, the Omnics have been forced into their own city underneath King's Row. In spite of this, Omnics and humans have tried to make relations better between the two parties. Takata Mondata, leader of the Shambali, tried to hold a rally here until he was assassinated by Widowmaker, working for Talon, whose motivations in doing so are currently unknown. Although memorials to Mondata still remain, King's Row's situation has degenerated quite a lot. We've seen clashes in various trailers, and the actual plot of King's Row the map is that the attacking team are trying to deliver an EMP to the Omnic Underground, effectively trying to destroy all of the Omnics there. The defenders are trying to stop them. It's a bit of a dark reflection as to where Omnic-human relations have got in the current days of Overwatch, as a second Omnic crisis threatens to grip the world once more. In absolute contrast, Numbani is the city of harmony, a city where Omnics and humans work together to create a technological marvel of the current world. The payload is the Doomfist, the weapon that was fought over in Overwatch's reveal cinematic back in 2014, and the weapon and symbol of any hero or villain who bears it. Numbani's Heritage Museum is holding a Doomfist exhibition. The attacking team on Numbani are trying to get the gauntlet to the museum safely, and the defenders are trying to prevent this or perhaps steal the gauntlet. Both Widowmaker and Reaper have a couple of lines around retrieving the gauntlet on this map. In BlizzCon's World of Overwatch panel in 2015, it was actually mentioned that Numbani was under threat by Doomfist. In some news tickers and news articles, it's actually said that Numbani's Unity Day celebrations were disrupted by a mysterious figure. We're not entirely sure who that is, of course. In the Numbani Heritage Museum, we can see a bit of the history of Doomfist, the saviour, the scourge, and the successor. So Doomfist has been at least two different people, who we can see by name on the posters below. As for Doomfist the Scourge, all we know is that Winston beat him from young kid in Overwatch's initial reveal cinematic, and as for the rest, we'll have to wait and see. Hollywood the map is set in Goldshire Studios in the Overwatch universe. It looks just like a film company lot from Hollywood, reminds me of the Warner Brothers studio lot, including the famous iconic water tower. In Hollywood, you're escorting the vehicle of Halford Glitchbot, named after Alfred Hitchcock, the famous suspense and horror film director known for The Birds amongst other films. He's the VIP in the car, and director of several of the films you see on posters around the Chinese cinema. Again, a real place in Hollywood. In Hollywood, the attacking team are trying to escort him to his trailer, the defenders are trying to prevent him from getting there or perhaps even attack him, as anti-Omnic protesters and activists. Anti-Omnic sentiment extends even to Hollywood in the Overwatch universe. Halfred actually makes a few cracks about mandatory human hiring quotas. We know that Omnics are actors. For example, in some of the film posters we can see Thespion, I think a little homage to Calculon from Futurama. Humans are having to compete with Omnics for jobs in other places in the world, I'm sure, and the acting industry is just one of these places. There are so many Easter eggs in Hollywood, they're more related to other Blizzard properties than anything else. I covered a bunch of these in two past videos, link them below, go take a look at those if you have time. Next up we've got Eichenwalde. Overwatch's newest and first new map is steeped in lore of the Omnic crisis. Although the forest has slowly been overtaking this abandoned village and castle, you can still see the scars of the first Omnic crisis there. During the crisis, Eichenwalde was apparently the site of a key battle where General Baldrich von Adler, the leader of the Crusader unit in the German armed forces, took a handful of his crusaders to the village in an effort to try and outflank an Omnic army that appeared to be bearing down on Stuttgart. Baldrich's soldiers were able to break down the enemy forces, giving the German military an opportunity to push back, and we see a hint of what could be that battle in Bastion Short, the last bastion. Sadly, the Crusaders that went to Eichenwalde didn't make it out the battle alive. General Baldrich finally collapsed in the castle's Great Hall, where his armour stays to this day. Reinhardt's been here as well, if his scratched name in the bar is anything to be believed, and in a new voice line on this map he says that Baldrich was actually also born here, as well as sadly dying here. The attacking team here are trying to recover Baldrich's armour and remains. The defenders are trying to prevent that. Moving over to payload maps now, we're going to take a quick look at Dorado. The basic lore of Dorado is that you're bringing the power core to the Lumerico power station as the attacking team to try and restore power to the region, while the defending team are trying to prevent this in some way or another. Outside of that basic premise of Dorado, there's a lot of undercurrents in this map. Obviously in the events of Soldier 76's animated short Hero, we saw him investigating the Los Muertos gang and saving Alejandra, a young girl whose mother has brought her up to believe in heroes. Another key part of Dorado is Lumerico, who has tasked itself with trying to restore Mexico's energy network after the first Omnic crisis. It's headed up by Guillermo Ex-president and apparently a war hero, he's been very confident in recent news interviews about the key role that he and his company have played in restoring living standards to Mexico. However, in voice lines on the map, Soldier 76 apparently wants to investigate both Lumerico and Los Muertos. So there's something funny going on in Dorado, and we need to work out what it is. Last but not least, Dorado is of course well known for its connections to Sombra. I've gone over these in a bunch of detail in the past, but as a real quick summary, there used to be a newspaper with Quien es Sombra, showing a mysterious shadowy figure. The Sombra protocol looks as though now, judging by Sombra being a hacker and working with Reaper, as we've seen in Old Soldiers, perhaps she's locked down or is attacking the power plant somehow, and very recently, newspapers in the game have been updated to talk about a worldwide hacking spree. It'll be interesting to see when we find out about Sombra in 2016. Next, we're heading over to Route 66, which is the home of the Deadlock Gang, known for arms and smuggling. McCree used to be a member of them before he and several members were caught in a sting operation, leading him to actually be recruited into Overwatch rather than face the threat of rotting in jail. Clearly, however, some of the gang remain free. The plot of Route 66 is that the attackers are trying to take a nuclear weapon of some kind back to the base and perhaps load it on this truck here. The defenders are trying to prevent this from happening. Now, the Deadlock Gang, it's interesting. They've clearly mustered enough strength to keep their smuggling operations going. There's quite a lot of illegal goods here. We can see logos from various places in the Overwatch universe, and McCree's decision to join Overwatch is clearly remembered by the gang still. I think he'd get quite a warm welcome if he was to show his face. Watchpoint Gibraltar in the Mediterranean is a former Overwatch base, the hideout of Winston for some time as well, judging by how at home he's made himself. In Watchpoint Gibraltar, you're following Winston's plan here on the board, trying to get the satellite drone to the launch pad to prep for launching into space and potentially reactivating Overwatch's communications network to try and recall agents if necessary. In Recall, we saw the next phase of this plan, Winston repelling Reaper and a Talon attack, who were attempting to steal a list of Overwatch agents. Whether there have been any permanent problems caused with Athena, Overwatch's speculative AI, remains to be seen. Watchpoint Gibraltar is a museum of Overwatch's former glory. We can see the full facilities of a single watchpoint, including dropships. Who's Maria Estrada, we wonder? And a hint of the space technology Overwatch had access to. 60 years in the future, I guess it still won't just be any organisation that can put a satellite in orbit. Having a look at capture maps, we're going to the Temple of Anubis. Egypt, the Giza Plateau, and the Temple of Anubis all hold significance within Overwatch. The Amari family, Ana and Farah, have both proudly served in the Egyptian military, and Farah in particular has been defending the Anubis AI facility in her work for Helix Security, which we saw in her comic, Mission Statement. When the Anubis AI broke free, it was only just contained by Farah and her team. Whatever Helix do or don't know about what they're guarding in Egypt and the Temple of Anubis, they're also attracting attention from elsewhere. A local named Hakeem is working with Reaper, who's been attempting to gain access to some kind of information, potentially the Anubis facility, that Helix are actually guarding. With Sombra clearly working on whatever data or information Reaper is gathering, we have to wonder if Reaper here is working on behalf of Talon or of himself. In this context, the fight for Anubis has additional significance. I'd imagine that the defenders are Helix or similar protecting the AI facility, with the attacking team attempting to infiltrate the facility for its secrets. In Russia, Volskaya Industries is tied deeply into Russia's response to the first Omnic crisis. Katya Volskaya manages and owns the company, which is family-run, and the giants Vyatagor mechs that stomp around were really important in Russia's victory in the first Omnic crisis. Given that the Siberian Omnium has reactivated in the present day, Volskaya Industries has cranked up production and is once again a vital part of the nation's defence. Zarya propaganda posters and general propaganda festoon the walls of Volskaya as Russia puts itself back on a war footing. We'd imagine here that the attackers are trying to disrupt or infiltrate the facility, and the defenders are protecting it. In Japan, Hammeh is deeply tied to Genji and Hanzo Shimada. Hammeh is the home of the Shimada clan, a once large criminal organisation and gang. In theory, it's been dismantled by Overwatch with Genji's assistance during the golden years of Overwatch. Relics of the past and reminders still remain though. We see a lot of it in Dragons, where Hanzo goes to meditate by the sword and blood-covered banner. This is potentially the site of the bloody confrontation where Hanzo tried to sort out his rebellious younger brother Genji and actually left him for dead before Genji was rescued by Overwatch and the attentions of Angela Ziegler. Mercy. As for the actual story of the map, we can't be 100% sure. You could even be the Shimadas trying to retake their ancestral home or something similar. Last but not least, we'll do a quick roundup of the control maps. Now, it's a little bit tougher for these to have a cohesive story than an attack or a defense map, but there's still lots of interesting things to see. I would scour the dropships if you haven't already for many interesting things, and go to the cockpit and stand there before the map starts. You may, if your teammates aren't making too much noise, hear Athena tell you a little bit of flavour information about the map in question. Ilios is based on the Greek island of Santorini in the South Aegean Sea and is a tranquil holiday destination, but actually has some rather suspicious visitors in the area. According to Athena in the dropship, you're apparently deploying to investigate reports of Talon looking for artifacts in the temple's ruins. Now, whether this could be for Talon simply raising money, or something else, we're not entirely sure. Lijiang Tower is the home of Lucheng Interstellar, one of the world's leading space technology companies. The addition of this photo on one of the desks after the map's launch now ties them a bit more to the Horizon lunar colony, where Winston left after his fellow guerrillas revolted and killed the colony scientists. We're not sure of any precise narrative beyond that, but the map feels like it has interesting ties to space, the story of Horizon, and maybe even whatever might be happening on the moon just now. Are those guerrillas still up there? Finally, we go to Nepal, the home of the Shambali, an order of Omnics formerly led by Takata Mondata before his assassination in the events of a lie. Zenyatta is also a member, and it's interesting that in Zenyatta's new meditation emote, we can see that his orbs show various symbols that can be seen on the map, shrine, various wall hangings, and different places. These symbols are clearly an important part in the practicing of the Shambali monk's faith. Genji was also here. Whether he arrived here and met Zenyatta or Zenyatta brought him back here, of course, we don't know, but he has his own room, complete with sword, photo of himself and Hanzo, and showing his different ties to his past life. Finally, for a monastery, this place looks quite unkept and in disarray. Papers litter around everywhere. Scrolls and possessions are also disturbed if you look around the level. Now, either the Shambali are quite untidy monks, or perhaps something has disrupted the peace and tranquility of the monastery. Could this mysterious artifact in the sanctum area of the map hold any answers to both the iris that the monks always refer to, or why the monastery is in a mess? A Zenyatta animated short would look great here. I'm just saying. Please, Blizz, you know you want to. Thanks for tuning into that quick summary of some of the lore and speculation of the lore behind Overwatch's maps. Now, I've actually done some of these maps in a bit more detail. I've linked all of those videos in the description below if you want to go have a look, and I will be doing some lore tours and map tours in future, so keep an eye out for those as well. If you'd like to see some of my other lore videos, check out the playlists here. If you like the vid, please do like, subscribe, and comment with what you think about the lore of Overwatch's maps and what kind of maps you'd like to see in future. I'd love to hear from you. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.